Shalom, blessings to everyone who is connecting. Let's wait a few seconds while everyone starts to join. Well, first of all, I want to thank each one of you sincerely for taking this time and being here with me. This way, I'm not alone. Also, we're here with a group. It's just that you can't see them, but it's a much smaller group. There are only a few of you. And without a doubt, this video we're making, once it's online, will be seen by a lot of people. So we also welcome everyone who will watch this video after we're recording it live. Today, specifically, we're going to talk about a topic that I personally think is very relevant, and it's a topic that will help many of us. We find ourselves nowadays in very critical and key times. A lot of people ask themselves on this channel specifically. They emailed us several times with many questions, specifically asking me, what do you do for a living? We notice you doing a lot. You do this, you do that. And the reality is that I'm multifaceted. Exactly, doing many things? Since we arrived here in Israel, God has allowed us to do many things in this nation. And in this specific period we're in now, the work has more than tripled. That is to say, we have a lot of activities here. We have a congregation here in the south of Israel, which in turn also has other congregations, daughter congregations that are being born, which are small. At the same time, within that, there are several groups that we are collaborating with and helping a lot. At the same time, we also have advisory work, counseling work. There are many things that are related to the topic of the congregation. On the other hand, we also have a tourism company. You might ask if I'm on vacation now, but I'm not really on vacation. Because right now, today we have a conference in Berlin. And all of this is being done virtually, online. And everything we're doing right now is exactly planning for the year 2022 and for what's still happening in 2021. Starting in June, we may see people visiting the land of the Bible. We're here to help anyone, pastors, leaders, brothers who wants to organize trips to Israel. We're here. That's one of the businesses we have here in Israel. In addition, I am an interpreter for the government of Israel. I also work a lot in financial consulting, and what we're going to do today is actually a bit about finance. That's what we're going to talk about today. We also have an online academy where I work extensively with history, archaeology, guides, and archaeologists. We're working here in the land of Israel, and we have a lot to do. In short, as I told you, multifaceted. For me, it's a privilege and joy to connect with you and help everyone on the other side of Israel. At some point, if God allows it, it would be a joy to be able to hug you here in person and not just virtually. But anyway, let's get straight to the topic. As I told you, we have an online academy here in Israel. And what God allowed us to do was to help many people. To access online resources, so we have provided information about online resources where we are offering many courses that are specifically related to history and archaeology. But we also thought it was very interesting to include one of the finance courses there, and specifically the topic we are going to discuss today, concretely, to be more specific. Is it a summary or more like an introduction to what the course is going to be? But I thought, why leave you with just an introduction? Those of you who are not Jewish here on the other side, and those who are Jewish and maybe don't apply it, could apply it and could improve. But I can assure you the way to manage money. So today we're going to try the keys behind the secret to success. But we're going to talk specifically about Yisrael in general, and not so much about the person. Why? About the person? That is, on a personal level, finances. On a personal level, we will cover more within the course. Why? Because it will be more personalized, where we will help each one of you, those who register, to see how your finances are, how to improve your finances, and how to help you become people who know how to use money well. so you don't suffer at night and can have a pleasant sleep, as the scriptures say. In peace I will lie down, for only in God will I find rest, for only in you will I be confident. So a lot of it also has to do with order and proper management. Finances. And sadly, within the world of believers, the topic of finances is not talked about much. And the reality is that both in the Old Testament and in the New Testament, there are many topics that are related to finances. In fact, the Messiah himself talked much more about money than about other topics. In the scriptures, we can find many things that are related to finances, but specifically, I want to get into the topic. I don't want to waste much time here, but I do advise you, if you can and have one nearby, to take a notebook and a pen. I know that many of you might leave before the class. Leave now, before the seminar that we're going to have. Many are like slaves to credit cards and a lot of things that happen. And is there a solution? So the good news I have for you is that there is a solution. Look, if I have to tell you my testimony, I went through a lot, and I can assure you that there is a solution simply by applying these principles that I want to share with you today, and what we are going to see throughout the course. From the day we were born, we have all been prepared for life. But we have been taught basic things like reading, writing, and solving arithmetic exercises. We learned to drive, we learned a profession, and when our first child was born, those who are married, many went to read on websites, or maybe buy a book on what to do when your first child arrives. The truth is that there is one thing that we have never ever been taught, and very few people teach their children how to manage money. And with this, maybe many of you feel the same way as I do. Kids go to school, they graduate, they finish. But when it comes to reality in real life, they don't know how to use money. They don't know how to handle finances. There are many times we've seen many people who, when they get their first paycheck, the first thing they do, they go and buy the latest trendy clothes. And they do a lot of things thinking, okay, I have to do something with this money, like it's burning a hole in their hand. The money they have with them, they need to use it, they need to show it off. In our course, we have a class about the two beasts that live inside me. It's not that there are actually beasts living inside someone, but we're speaking figuratively, where there are two beasts. You have to learn to control the impulse that each one has inside us. We often say this phrase, it's part of the course tips. Is it something I want or something I need? And this is something you have to ask yourself when you're at the checkout. When you're at that supermarket checkout where they put all the promotions, you have to ask yourself, is it something I want or something I need? So that's one of the tips included in the course. There you have it. I want to tell you a little bit. For the level of financial management you need to reach, in many cases, you have to learn it as you go. But it would be really good if we had a mentor or someone to tell us what the process is and which paths we should avoid to obviously avoid headaches. Personally, I have had mentors, but I have also made several mistakes. I remember there were times when I even had to leave my card at the supermarket because my credit card wouldn't go through. You might ask how, but you, Israel, know how to manage money. And sometimes there are situations where everything just falls apart. But what you don't lose is the ability to use your sense to get back up, and you get back up again. A fall is not a defeat, no, because you get back up again. And it's precisely through these principles that we're going to share. First of all, I want you to understand that the territory of Israel, many of you know a little bit about the geography of Israel. I'm going to be very quick with this, so I don't talk too much about it, but I do want you to understand something. The annual per capita income of an Israeli is $41,560. Calculating for 12 months gives just over $3,000 per month. So you might say, in the countries where you may be watching from, Central America, South America, you'll say, wow, Israelis are rich. The reality is that's not the case. The reality is that here the financial system is very high, very expensive. And if the couple doesn't work, if both don't work, it's very hard to make ends meet. So the reality is that when it comes down to it, those $3,500 really don't mean much at all. Here, just so you have an idea, the cost of a Happy Meal at McDonald's for the little ones is over $13. And that's just as an example. And like that, we could go on and on. Rent, for example, for an 80 square meter apartment in the city of Tel Aviv can cost $3,000 or more. And I'm talking about something super cheap. I mean, it's much, much, much higher. But look at the chart you have here in front of you. You will see Lebanon and Syria above Israel on the map. Notice they're in black because they're enemies of Israel. On the other hand, you have the Mediterranean Sea, Egypt and Jordan. Jordan and Egypt are in green, indicating peace treaties. The Mediterranean Sea is also in green. Because through there, Israelis can also travel to the countries located in the European region. But notice that below each of these countries, there's a little number, and that number represents the annual per capita income in dollars for that country. Which shows there's a huge difference. If we say Israel's per capita income is $41,560, how can it be dollar estadounidense, United States dollar, 3,019 in Egypt, and dollar estadounidense, United States dollar, 4,405 in Jordan? How can it be that in Lebanon it's $7,583? We're talking about a very big difference between countries that are exactly on the same geographic line. So it is. The question is, how is it possible that Israel, even though it has enemies and no diplomatic relations, can't trade or sell? And it only has relations with Jordan and Egypt, just two countries. And actually, Jordan and Egypt do have oil, they do have resources, they do have gas, they do have water. Which Israel sadly does not have, but that hasn't stopped it from becoming a world power. Obviously, the people of Israel do something different when it comes to managing finances. And this is where we're gonna learn and share with you some tips. Simply what these people do and how you can apply it there, on your side. We know that the state of Israel also doesn't have natural resources. 70% of this country is desert. It doesn't have oil. The water it has is very basic. The water consumed here comes from the Sea of Galilee. The Sea of Galilee is about 21 kilometers long north to south and 12 kilometers wide east to west. In some areas, it reaches 210 meters deep for 9 million inhabitants. Notice that it's very, very little. Israel doesn't have gas. But in these last few months, you may have heard about a company or a base. It was done in international waters, very close to the north, called Leviathan. So possibly there is a gas plant there that will now supply Israel. And precisely what will happen with that is that Israel will become a power even much greater. Because as a result of this, Leviathan will start selling gas to Europe and even to Russia, which previously came from the liberated state in the south of Israel, Egypt. Some Israeli inventions you have surely seen, and you are witnesses to many Israeli inventions. But maybe many of the ones I'm showing here in this image, on this screen, you don't know them. First of all, I don't know if you knew that the USB, for example, is an Israeli invention. It's been around for several years, but it's an Israeli invention, the USB. Watergen is a company that is the creator or the one that managed to invent it. Water from the air, that is, they're little machines that take in air and produce water. Now, I want you to know something. Much of what the people of Israel have, and we're going to see it in this class. It's about looking for solutions and not focusing on the problems. Now, why am I telling you this now at this point? Because Watergen is a company that creates water from air. That's the motto and version. You may wonder how this is possible, but it's been around for years. You can witness this yourselves. Many of you have an air conditioner. When you turn it on in the summer, you'll notice it has a little hose. If you go behind it, you'll see that water comes out. That's exactly what the Israelis saw. It was the moment. We can't waste that water. We need to do something. So what did they do? Did they add a filter? By putting a filter on it, the water is transformed into drinking water. It's taking in air and turning it into liquid. So you think, how come I didn't come up with that idea? People make air conditioners. People buy air conditioners. What they did was take the same concept and turn it into a smaller, self-powered machine, and also into industrial machines, which even today can supply up to 960 liters of drinking water daily. And they are sent to communities where the drinking water is not very good. So notice that sometimes the ideas are already there, sometimes things already exist, but you just have to look for the solution to a problem. We're going to talk a little bit about that as well. Gavin Imagine is a company that was also created by a soldier who left the army, and that soldier who left the army, he used to do self-guided missiles, and he said, how am I not going to be able to create a pill with a camera inside to put it inside the body and have it take pictures through the abdomen and help doctors so that they can have better and more resources for their patients? A little pill that you take and it has a camera? That camera takes pictures inside your body, which will later be used medically, and obviously that pill disappears. Intel, creator of many Pentium systems, was created, for example, here in Israel. iConcrete is a company that takes care of beaches and is making eco-friendly concrete. Orcam is a company that created a system, for example, for facial recognition. There are many people who use glasses like I do, but there are people who have a lot of trouble with their vision and can't see very well. So what this company did was create a system that you put here on the side of your glasses. And this one? This little thing is facial recognition, and if you approach that person, you who don't have good vision get close to someone. The device says, for example, it's Jorge, and you respond, "Hi, Jorge." It keeps repeating, "This is Jorge," but if you turn, it asks if it's Oscar. Oh, hi, Oscar. It's facial recognition, and on the other hand, it's also a little device that helps as a reader. You read a book and it dictates it here for you. Incredible. Aviation is a company, the first company that created airplanes with a solar system, solar energy for up to 9 passengers. Tyrannica is a company that created a bracelet that helps people who suffer from migraines. Wix, many of you know the company Wix, a company that has been created in some way. It's kind of dethroned, to put it in some way. The work of web designers. In fact, many web designers purchase on Wix, then buy from a company for a set amount. People say, look at what I designed. But really, Wix, Temi, and Eli designed it. They are companies that created robots. And these robots are small robots meant for elderly people, for senior citizens. And this little device is there to keep them company, to remind them that they need to stand up, that they need to walk, that they need to drink water, that they need to dance, that they need to read a book. It's a small device that keeps someone company so they don't feel alone. Netafim is that famous company that created the drip irrigation system, and Waze. I don't think he needs any kind of introduction. It's one of those companies that's everywhere nowadays and helps us a lot to get to places and avoid shortcuts we need to avoid. Israeli or Jewish companies? As you know, there are a lot. I just put a few here. Facebook, Marvel, Weibo, TripAdvisor, Macy's, Warner Bros., Google, Dell, Hyatt, Calvin Klein, Levi's, Starbucks, Kenneth Cool. All of them, each and every one, have Jewish owners and Israeli influence. A lot of people say, we don't want the Jews, so it's going to be very hard to get rid of them. The reality is that it's going to be very hard to get rid of an Israeli invention. It's very difficult nowadays to live in the generation we find ourselves in without using something that's influenced by an Israeli or by a Jew who's behind it. Israel is known as the cradle of religions. Here, in the small epicenter, we could call it, of the old city of Jerusalem is the Western Wall, a sacred place for the Jewish people. The Al-Aqsa Mosque, the Dome of the Rock, an important place for Islam, the third most important place for Islam and for Catholic Christianity. There's the famous Holy Sepulchre, the well-known Church of St. Helena, inside the walls of Old Jerusalem. The three most important religions in the world have their center, or their place, or their important sanctuary center in the city of Jerusalem. And so, the state of Israel learned to coexist with them and with all this unity, even though they were outside their territory for 2,000 years. When they returned, their land was invaded, and they had to settle for what there was, due to diplomatic agreements and peace treaties. But that hasn't stopped, and didn't stop the Jewish people from continuing to be, as they say, as you would say, outstanding. One of the keys, and the number one key, and this is what I want to focus on with you, is to be the best at everything in order to survive. As you know, the Jewish people were deprived of living in their city, the city of Jerusalem, since its destruction by the Jews, attacks by those from Rome, by order of Titus, where they destroyed the city of Jerusalem around the year 73 or 75 after Jesus. And then, a few years later, they ended up changing the name of the city of Jerusalem, and the whole history changes completely for the Jewish people. Yet something always remained with the Jewish people, as they were expelled to various nations and parts of the world. They had to learn the language, the culture, learn to eat food they weren't used to eating. The language they had to learn there, and a lot of things they had to learn, but above all, they had to learn how to survive. And there was something that really stands out in this community, which is the Friday night dinner. The well-known Shabbat dinner, what is known as Kabbalat Shabbat, Kabbalat Shabbat. Take a look. There in the picture, you have a dinner, a bunch of people there, sitting together, the candles are lit, and there's the piece of bread. What is known as challah at every Kabbalat Shabbat. It's the place where families gather. It's the meeting place, the place where all the families are united. And there will always be an opportunity to share. Always, always, always. At these tables, conversations and connections are made. There's always someone's son who's thinking about how to improve something, how to start a business, how to do this, how to do that. Always, always, always. And there's a constant incentive from adults to encourage young people to be creative, to be creators. That's something that sadly was largely lost in the countries of Central America, or maybe South America or North America. Let's refer to it as Western culture to avoid issues. Because there's a lot of selfishness. There's a lot of what is known as envy. How can I give tips when I actually want to take advantage? Here it's the opposite. As long as I can bless you, I will bless you. Because at some point you will bless me. Bless those who bless you. That's the idea behind the Jewish people. Today I bless you, and maybe at some point life will help you find me somewhere, and you will bless me. When I have the opportunity to do good, I do good. I don't keep it to myself. I don't hold on to it. It's a people who learn to be generous. They have to learn to give, even if they don't have anything. So at every Shabbat dinner, there's always this concept that you go in with the mindset of wanting to help, that this day is a day when we have to find a way to be generous, to be able to help. On the other hand, the people have a culture of global thinking. Keep in mind that only a few speak the language here, and we need to discuss the Jewish people as a whole. How many people live in the whole world? We could reach about 16 million maybe a little more. But if we talk about Spanish and if we talk about English, those are languages that are spoken much more than the Hebrew language. So the people have a culture of global thinking, and here what you'll find is a lot of people who speak more than 2 or 3 languages. In fact, nowadays there are many people who even speak 7 languages, 7 different languages, and that has to do with the global culture. The business is outside, the business is not inside. What is inside is the weekly store. That is, what will help me stay up to date, but it won't make me rich, it won't make me a millionaire. The business is outside. You see, for example, the town store or the shopping mall. So you have to aim for the shopping mall. That's where the internationals will arrive, where the product will go. Someone will look at it and then it will go somewhere else. That's what the Jewish people do, a culture of global thinking, always going outward, not necessarily physically. not wanting to move to another place, but rather to take their product, to go out with their DNA to the world. Key number 2 is practice before theory. There is something very important here, and that's the army, but I know that in many it's mandatory. Here, for example, young people want to join the army. Why? Because they are given access to an incredible amount of resources that cost millions and millions of dollars that a university can't provide. So practice in the army is extremely important, much more than theory. But something very important is that from a young age, they are taught the concept of volunteering. Children, when they are 11, 12, or 13 years old, have to volunteer, for example, at hospitals or with ambulances. They have to go out and look for donations. They stand at the doors of supermarkets and look for donations, collect offerings. They ask people, hey, look, we're collecting offerings for this organization. And they simply volunteered for 1 or 2 days, that's all. But that's where the practice comes in. They start shaping their character from a young age. They shape the ability to lose their shyness and to build a relationship with adults. For a common cause and the greater good, not for themselves, just look. The idea of giving comes up again. I give my time. I'm doing something that maybe I don't really like to do, but I'm breaking down structures to finally become a better person. Generosity and group work teach valuable lessons about teamwork. Why? They tell them, we'll meet here, go there, then pick you up at this time. Group work. People don't go alone. Remember that the Lord himself taught that when you go 2 by 2. Don't go alone. It's something that's very biblical. It's something that's very, very Jewish. The fact of working together, working as a group. We grow together, we move forward together. As a result of that, talks start to appear that generate ideas. Many of the talks are like those brainstorming sessions, as they're called. We sit down and say, today we'll dedicate this day to brainstorming. What's on your mind? Tell me, tell me, tell me, tell me. That's when all the ideas come up and we see that key number 3 is emerging. And I think it's one of the most important ones. Is it related to Israeli chutzpah? What is that? It's about being bold, being daring. Now, there are 2 concepts of being daring. One of them is perhaps not so pleasant, because here, for example, when you arrive, and that's something we had to learn in the culture when we arrived. We come from a South American culture, from Argentina. I was born in Argentina, and I come used to kisses, hugs, the warmth of family, and being very, 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 very connected. When you arrive here, you encounter a different culture, but you must learn to be bold and daring. Why? Because everyone here is bold and daring. You're arriving in a nation of the bold and daring. Remember that it is also biblical. It says that the brave are the ones who take it by force, right? That is, those who go first. Remember when the spies went, 10 said no and 2 said yes. That's the concept, the DNA that always gets passed on. What's the downside? What I wanted to tell you is that, for example, when you go with your little one to a park and a stranger appears whom you don't know, and the stranger's gonna say, hey, your child's clothes are not put on right, or the child is dirty, or why is he barefoot? Why don't you put shoes on him? And they start to get involved in your privacy in a very casual, very quick way. And you say, but why like that? But when you're already here, when you know the culture, someone who doesn't know the culture sees it as aggressive, but someone who knows the culture simply goes along with it. And then he says, hey, but do you really think it's going to bother him to be without a shoe, to be barefoot? Why do you think that? And that's how the conversation between them begins. They're bold, isn't it embarrassing? And because they're not afraid to be bold, they achieve many things. Sorry, because they're bold, they achieve many of the things they need to accomplish and that they reach nowadays. Look, I'm going to give you 2 examples, a very quick biblical example and another non-biblical example. Well, I don't know if it's biblical. Actually, it is biblical because it's in the scriptures, but obviously, yes, it's biblical. But there's a lot of debate about whether God is really a man in there or if his name is in there. Why? Because I'm talking about the story of Esther. We're not discussing that topic here. We do offer courses on it, but they're biblical. The topic of whether God's name is hidden or not, that's a different topic. Why discuss this topic? Because it's the DNA of the Jewish people. You know that when we go back to that story, we find that the Jewish people were about to be exterminated. They were about to be wiped out from the earth. But a man named Mordecai rises up, talks to his relative, and tells Esther, who was the queen at that time. Her Jewish name was Hadassah. Esther is one of the names she had adopted, which actually means hidden. In the Hebrew language, it comes from the term lehastir. And what she does ultimately becomes the savior or the salvation of the Jewish people. Because she has to do something daring, she does something bold, she does something that's in the DNA. And it's chutzpah, Israeli chutzpah. What did she do? She appeared before the king when she wasn't supposed to. She appeared before the king when he hadn't called her, when she didn't have permission. And now you might say, but wait a minute, if she was his wife, she could appear whenever she wanted. No, because the law at that time forbade the queen from approaching the king without being summoned, without being called. And she could risk either being expelled or being killed. So what she did was something bold. She dared. She took the plunge. The door was closed, but she opened it. She found a way to open the door and went in. And that's what sadly a lot of people lack. There are many people who lack boldness. There are many people who lack it. Being daring, being aggressive, but in a good way. Not being rude, but being aggressive in the good sense. In the good sense of saying, okay, the door is closed, but there has to be a solution. There has to be a way to get in. There has to be a window. There has to be a space for air. There has to be some way to find a solution. All problems, all of them, absolutely all problems have solutions. There isn't a problem that doesn't have a solution. It might take me more time to solve it, or it might take me less time to solve it, but in the end, I will find the solution. Many people give up before reaching that point. The Jewish people achieve what they achieve precisely because they have this DNA of Israeli chutzpah, the fact of being bold, being aggressive. And my advice is that you try to do it that way. The non-biblical example is of a young man who went and applied to a company that I think many of you know called PayPal. This company, PayPal, had a lot of problems with financial data theft and credit card data theft when it first started. And what happened is that a young man who had just finished his military service had an acquaintance here in the government, and this acquaintance in the government. What? Because one of the important things we're also going to talk about in the course is about the network of connections, the network of contacts. What this acquaintance did was, he knew someone from the company PayPal, and he said, look, give me the opportunity to travel there and get in touch with one of the decision makers at PayPal. And that's how it happened. He took a plane, got there, all the way to the offices in San Francisco. He sits down with one of the PayPal executives and says, look, I have the solution to your problem. The man looks at him and says, I'm only accepting you because you're a friend of so-and-so. What's the solution? And he says to him, well, look, give me problems and I'll find you the solution. And he says, look, you know I have people here who have been working for a very long time. I'm going to give you these books, and if you find the solution to these problems we have, let's talk. But in reality, he gave him a bunch of books just to get rid of him, kind of like saying, I'm going to honor you because you're a colleague of that person. But this is impossible. The next day, the young man returns with the results, saying, here's your solution. These books all have this solution. And what he did was show him an algorithm, the famous algorithm, the one that stops and controls all credit card theft. This man asked him, how was it possible? And the boy told him, he said the following. During the time I was in the army, remember, in the army. During the time I was in the army, he told him, my job was to get on the internet and start looking for where the possible future attack was going to be. So what I simply did was see how they were going to steal a credit card. So if my job is focused on that, if my job was to prevent possible human attacks, how could I not? To stop a financial theft attack? So what he did, and as one does, which is this thing about boldness, is to focus on the solution and not on the problem. And what about point number 4? And with this, I want to start wrapping up. It's tactless, just tactless. Get straight to the point, no beating around the bush. Look, the Jewish people are a tackles people. There are people who don't beat around the bush. Here you have to get straight to the point. Let's get to the point. What do you want to say? Let's get to the point. Look here. What you actually do is the following. If you have a plan, then show me the action. Show me how you want to execute it and tell me how much you need. That's all. Don't come to me with stories here. I did this, I did that, I created this, I created that, and look, I want to do this. Then they're going to say, wait a minute, wait a minute, wait a minute. Lay out your plan. What's the vision? What's the action plan? And how much money do you need? That's all. If you're clear, you know what the solution is. First of all, you have to know what the problem is. Focus on finding the solution, not the problem. And then you say, I need X amount of money, and your network of contacts makes that money appear. That's what happens now. You saw a lot of emerging companies, what are known as the famous Israeli startups. These famous Israeli startups started as emerging companies. From ideas. Someone had the idea but didn't have the funds. Then the investor comes in, puts in the money, and the company moves forward. How do we work together? Again, there's no selfishness. There's teamwork and a search for a solution. Look, I want to close with this. With this point, there was a leadership meeting in the city of Yerushalayim, and this is what I'm going to tell you. It's not real, but it's showing the DNA of the Jewish people. So it says that in this leadership meeting in Yerushalayim, the Lord is gathering a rabbi leader, a Catholic leader, and an Islamic leader. So he gathers these 3 leaders there in the city of Yerushalayim. He gives them the announcement when all 3 arrive. He tells them, look, I have decided, God is the one speaking here. I have decided that I am going to put an end to humanity. I'm tired of these people always complaining, always doing things I tell them not to do. They're stubborn and disobedient, so I want nothing more to do with them. What I'm going to do is send a second flood. He already did it in the past. He's going to send a second flood. So God leaves, and the 3 leaders are left there looking at each other. God help us. And they leave, so the Islamic leaders go and gather all their Islamic leaders and tell them the following. They say, look, God gathered us in Jerusalem and told us that he is going to send a second flood. So what we have to do is try to be the biggest religion until the flood comes. Go and have many children, make large families, and a lot of things you can do to make it happen. The religion that has the dominance and is the largest until this second flood arrives. On the other hand, Catholicism, their leader meets with the Catholic leaders and says, look, same thing. God united us in Jerusalem, spoke, and said he'll send a second flood, so I want you to go and share the good news. We have to reach as many people as we can so they can be saved before death reaches them, and they have no opportunity before the waters cover the earth. It's the rabbi's turn, so he gathers his leaders and says, God brought us together in Jerusalem because he was here. God brought us together here in Jerusalem, and he asked the Catholic leader, the Islamic leader, and us. And he told us that a second flood was coming. So we have a new challenge. This is what the rabbi says. We have a new challenge, and the new challenge we have is that we have to learn how to survive underwater. Did you understand me? The second flood was coming to cover the waters completely. The thought of surviving, the thought of being the best at everything, the thought of working together, the thought of being aggressive, of having chutzpah, and the thought of being straightforward, of getting straight to the point was there. We have to learn to survive underwater. That is, let's look for the solution, given the problem. The problem is imminent, it's coming, but we have to look for the solution. We already know there's a problem, let's look for the solution. Let's learn. We are going to live underwater. That is the DNA of the success of the people of Israel as a nation. Within the course that we are going to share, we will talk a little more about the personalized DNA that any of you can adopt and carry with you. Why? Because you have been grafted in. The book of Romans says that you have been grafted into the tree, which is the root. And a lot of people get confused and take that concept and twist it instead of holding on to sound concepts. One of the concepts we have is to build a healthy relationship with Israel and the Jewish people and to connect the global church. The global leader who is outside of Israel. I want to tell you a little bit now before we finish about the online course, just very quickly. I really hope you enjoyed this little talk we had here, even though it wasn't that little. We were here for quite a while, quite a few minutes. But I think it's been important so that you can understand the concept of what you're gonna learn. This was simply it. You know, when you go to a restaurant and they serve something like this, or at a supermarket they offer a sample and say, if you like it, take the product home. We have the possibility for you to connect via Zoom twice a month. You connect via Zoom, and in addition, the classes are recorded so that you can keep watching them, repeating them there, devouring them, as some people say, so you can learn and learn and learn. In addition, we send you PDF materials, we send you Excel files, where you also have to learn how to do financial planning. There are many things that we will continue to learn throughout and along this course. As I said, the classes are recorded, so you can watch them whenever you want. Each student will receive a certificate. Now we have several courses that are related to finance. If you take a certain number of specific courses, you can become a coach, someone who teaches about finance. This is where we will have healthy financial practices in the use of money. We are going to use money wisely, that is, how to use money intelligently. How can you learn to spot business opportunities so that in the end, it helps you create the dream of having your own business? That's something that the Jewish people do with great ease. Here, 3 out of every 4 people are entrepreneurs. On the other hand, it's about helping them get out of their current debts. I think there are a lot of people nowadays who are in debt. Here, you will receive a lot of tips on how to get out of your current debts. On the other hand, I also want to tell you that there are many more courses. For example, we have courses on finance, personal planning, personal and family when it comes to the world of finance. Family work is very important. In times of crisis and in times of opportunity, family work is very important. Family, I'm being honest, you need to get involved. Hispanic culture often strongly avoids exposing things to children. When a family is facing difficult financial situations, do you know what they're doing? Are they depriving the child of becoming a future entrepreneur? We're going to see that in one of the courses. Why? And it's simple. I can assure you it's simple. And then, we also have many courses that are based on the principles of the Bible, and obviously many things that are related, and tips from the Jewish people. This is where we end the class and everything I had to share today. I ask you if you want, well, actually, I do ask and advise you to visit our website. Go there, israeladora.com. When you go to the website, israeladora.com, you will find a logo that says Israel Adora, and you will find another logo that says Delana Academy. You are going to click on the logo that says Delana Academy. There you see Delana Academy, and there you will see all the courses we have online. And you will be able to get a membership. Notice that we have 3 membership options, so you can choose any of the membership options. And when Israel opens up again, we will be here. Here we can meet in person. We have the school in Jerusalem. The academy is physically located in Jerusalem, so that you can also take full advantage of the courses we have. Archaeological, biblical, history, and a few more things we have to offer you. And I also want to take this opportunity to invite you to some exclusive material that we are going to have. Exclusive videos from Pesach week, the well-known Passover week. We are going to teach from the cultural and historical perspective of the Hebrew people. And what is it that happened at the time when the Messiah was in Jerusalem? So pay close attention. Is this going to be from April 1st to 6th? You have to register for that. It's free. It doesn't cost any money, but you do have to register. And obviously, as a result, you can use these tips and actually become experts. And that you have authority when you talk about Israel. So without further ado, thank you so much for joining me, for not leaving me alone here in today's talk. I hope it has been a blessing for each one of you. Go to the website, log in, take a course. I'll see you in the courses on Zoom. And I can assure you that we are going to help you improve your finances. And we're going to help you so that you can truly become owners. With tips from experts who have learned how to use money. According to the scriptures, God bless you. See you in the courses there at the Land Academy. Shalom to everyone. Bye-bye.